astral travel or time travel we
Yeah, please.
one second, sir. Through astral travel or time travel, we see the future.
Right.
It means the future is already predestined. In this case, where manifestation and law of attraction using free will comes.
Yeah.
That was my question, sir.
Yeah. So basically,
Thank you.
when we say that the future is there, the future is already existing means it is existing only as a probability. It is in a very fluid state.
Sir.
It is not so rigid that it cannot be changed because of various currents that are passing. So the probability is actually getting created. Means the probability is actually in a fluid state. Okay. So if everything goes fine, if there is no other interference, that is the natural outcome. But if there is a conscious or some willful intention to change that course, it can be changed. So in that case, what we see in astral travel, maybe we can actually see some undesirable thing happening in the astral plane because of the current situations. But the current situation itself can undergo some kind of change. When the current situation undergoes the change, even the outcome, future is nothing but the outcome of the current moment. So even the outcome can be changed. That is how we can say that future is existing in a fluid state, but it can be changed with human intention or because of any other external forces. So that is, you got convinced with the point?
Yes, sir. Okay. To some extent, we can see, and we have the chance of changing it too.
Right. So once I was actually rushing to airport, I was supposed to catch the flight in the last minute because it was an unexpected visit. So I was rushing to the airport and I was worrying, or rather I would say that I was thinking, what if the car gets punctured? And within 5 minutes, the car stopped with a bang. There was a puncture. So did I predict the future or did I create the future? So while I was actually undergoing this situation, I was asking myself, did I create this moment or did I predict this? Is it a prediction that the tire is going to get flattened? Or did I, with my own conscious thinking, created that situation? So you answer this question.
You are created. We have created, sir.
Yeah. Some people, they say that I have created it. Some other people can actually see that I have predicted. Maybe I got intuition that, okay, in future, I'm going, my car tire is going to get punctured. Maybe I have predicted it. There are two possibilities. One possibility is that I have predicted it. The other possibility is that I have created that situation. So if I have to answer my question, because this is the situation which I have personally encountered. So if in that case, what I would say, I say that I have created this moment. So future is already existing in a fluid state, but by actually projecting more of my energy on the possibility that there might be a puncture, I have created that event. We should see like that. We have the power to change the future. Brindaji, is that okay?
Yes, sir. True, sir. Yes, sir. I understood, sir.
But
thank you, sir.
Yeah, human mind is so dicey that we always actually gravitate towards things which we don't want. Because the forces of emotional currents are stronger. The force of anger, the force of fear, they are more predominant compared to the forces of love. Means they have strength at a higher level, but at lower level, this seems to be predominant. See, when you are actually gripped with fear, and on one hand, you have something very fearful. On the other hand, you have another thing which is very cheerful. Which is the more predominant emotional current that you will be undergoing? It is usually the negative feeling.
Fearful.
Fearful only, sir.
Fearful only.
Yeah, that is actually dominating. That is the dominating emotional current. So our entire focus is actually shifting towards it. And by focusing on that particular event, we are actually going to create that kind of situation. So that is about it.
Sir,
Okay.
is it because of our anxiety for future?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
we
When
try to
yeah, when we talk about negative emotions, mostly they are pertaining to self-survival. We think negative emotions are bad, but as a matter of fact, negative emotions have got some positive connotation, because unless we have these kind of negative emotions, survival will be difficult. For example, we are not afraid of a snake. So what we do, we tend to play with it. Once we start playing with it, any moment it can bite and we can die. Fear is a mechanism which is intended for the survival of the self. So that is the reason, see, at any moment, my survival is most important for me. So naturally, my emotions would be towards my survival. So these negative emotions like fear, anger, these kind of things are much predominant, much forceful when compared to positive emotions like compassion, tolerance, joyfulness. Yeah. So, yeah, please. Prabhakar.
Yeah, I have one slightly offbeat question, sir, slightly different from this topic.
Okay.
So now when the first human beings were born in this earth, they never came with any karmas, no? No, later on, okay, we did bad karmas, good karmas, and we are enjoying the fruits of it. The
Right.
first human beings, they did very bad karma, no? Then how the whole thing started, sir?
See, basically, when we have to talk about karmas, what is karma exactly? Is it a punishment? Is it a reward? How do we see karma as such? What is the role of karma in human life, or rather species on earth? Why karma came into existence at all? So that is the fundamental question we need to understand. Karma, according to me, not only me, but predominantly karma is nothing but a kind of soul conditioning exercise. The theory says that everything is in a state of total inertia. Means when the creation started, everything is at a very rudimentary state. Slowly, some part of this creation started evolving, and that evolution has led to the purification. The entire process of evolution is nothing but purification from a state of lowest level to highest level. Means if you look at charcoal, charcoal represents one end of the spectrum, and the same charcoal, if it is subjected to heat and pressure for intense period, then it actually transforms into diamond. So if you hold diamond in one hand and the charcoal in the other hand, we don't understand the relationship between the charcoal and the diamond, because they look different, they look distinct. Their characteristics are totally different. But we fail to understand that this charcoal itself is a transformed entity which is called the diamond. So there is a process which is involved in the process of conversion of coal into diamond. Both are carbon, right? Similarly, if you look at the creation can also be considered as similar to the coal and the diamond. So the creation itself is under the process of purification. We don't know how to define God. We don't know who God is. We only assume that God is some supreme power which is beyond our comprehension. And maybe it is much bigger than, much complex than what we can really think and understand. This is our understanding about God. We think that God is perfect. But according to certain philosophies, the God himself is in the process of perfection. He is not 100% perfect. Even he is in the process of perfection. Means he is also undergoing evolution. So one part of God is at the lowest level, and at the other end of the part, it is at the highest level. And in between, there is a process which is happening. That is what is known as the evolution. And this evolution is actually, what is happening is some part of God, it is actually under the process of evolution, and we are part of those part of God. So this entire process is actually governed by another process which is known as law of karma. Karma is not something to punish, it is not something to actually reward people. It is only a soul conditioning exercise. That is what people say, karma. So your first case, before man came onto earth, where is karma means? There is no karma, but as such, it is the natural process of evolution of God himself. Did I make sense to you, Mr. Prabhakar?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So if you want to understand this concept of evolution and involution, means where the God himself is actually transforming himself every time, means continuously to become perfect. It is like a kind of cycle. You can read one book by Meher Baba. I will give the name of that book. Means it actually talks about the Sufi philosophy. Okay, God Speaks by Meher Baba. You can go through that book. In that, they give a very detailed and lengthy explanation about this process. Okay, shall we get into the session now?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So God is nothing but a form of energy, and the energy tries to purify itself, and then we are all energy, sir. So we also try to purify ourselves.
So it would be partial if we say that we are just energy. We are energy plus intelligence, the invisible intelligence. Intelligence is something which cannot be perceived. It cannot be seen, at least by human beings. Intelligence does not have any form. It is formless. So if you say that, if you ask about God, what is God means, we can say that God is nothing but intelligence plus energy. 80% of energy, 80% of intelligence, invisible intelligence, and maybe 20% of energy. So energy is in smaller proportion compared to the invisible intelligence. The vast spaces of these universes, multiverses, are filled with emptiness. If you look at the entire composition of universe, we can say that only 6% of the universe is made up of energy. This energy can be in the form of pure energy, or it can be in the form of materials or matter. Means if you look at the entire universe, more than 90% of the space within the universe is emptiness. Here and there you find energy particles like stars, galaxies, and the rest of the things. But as such, if you look at the entire volume, 90% of the volume of universe is filled with nothingness. Everybody says that it is nothingness, but in reality, it is the invisible intelligence that is actually existing. Even if you look at an atom, what is an atom? Atom is the smallest particle that is visible to us through strong electronic microscopes. And if you look at atom itself is not the smallest thing. Within the atom, there are protons, neutrons, which are at the center, and you have electrons orbiting these neutrons, nucleus. The space within the outermost electron and the innermost nucleus is filled with more than 90% of emptiness. So if you look at solar system and if you look at the atomic structure, both are similar. Means we have sun in the center of our solar system, and we have different planets which are actually distanced over thousands of miles. The distance between sun and the farthest planet is lakhs of kilometers. Means that is the volume of space, and everything is in between is emptiness. Similarly, if you look at an atom is also having the nucleus in the middle and the electrons spread like how the planets are spread across, and the in-between volume is emptiness. So that is how we say that great majority of this universe is nothing but emptiness. We all assume that it is emptiness, and we only recognize or acknowledge the presence of energy, which is in the form of electrical impulses or magnetic impulses, or whether it is in the form of some matter or energy. We call it this is the only existing thing. So if you look at God, God is composed of intelligence, infinite intelligence, and some amount of energy. These are the only two attributes known to us. But as human beings, our knowledge is very, very limited. Maybe there might be 1,001 attributes of God which we are failing to recognize. So we should never say that, okay, we are only energy beings. We are beings of energy and intelligence plus X factor. We don't know what it is. Yeah, can I go to the presentation?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So yesterday we talked about same soul, many bodies. Like as human beings, we are not just biological beings. In fact, we are spiritual beings undergoing temporary physical existence for a divine purpose, and the divine purpose is nothing but soul purification. And this cycle of death and birth will cease the moment our soul reaches the highest level of perfection, which is considered to be close to that of God. Means then we get amalgamated with God. Like if you take a handful of water from river, the water in your hand is different from the water in the river bed. But the moment you pour back the water into the river, all the water drops which were in your hand, when they get mixed with the main river body, they get amalgamated with the main river, and we can never distinguish, we can never separate the water that existed in your hand and the water which is in the river. That is how our Atma, it gets actually amalgamated into the Almighty Soul. So for that we take different incarnation, and we have understood that the entire journey is actually governed by these templates. So we talked about the physical body, we talked about etheric body, we talked about emotional body, we talked about mental body, and then we talked about causal body. We told that the first four are temporary in nature. When man dies, gradually all these templates will vanish. But only the causal body will remain. The causal body, above that causal body, we have Buddhic body, that is the knowledge body. And then beyond that, we have spiritual body. So these three things, they remain intact forever. So next time when we take an incarnation, we take all the stuff that is existing in the causal body, we take a part of it, we come into this world with those prarabdha karmas, and then we undergo some kind of experiences in this world. We gain some kind of knowledge, because knowledge can be gained only through experience. Real knowledge can only be experienced. What we see is also an experience. But somebody saw something and they tell you something, that is not a real knowledge, because they have not experienced it. So the soul has to experience so many diversities. It has to experience the life of a woman. It has to experience the life of a man. It has to experience the life of an animal. Means from every perspective of existence, it has to undergo so many experiences. after accumulating all these kind of experiences, that it rises to such a matured level that it actually starts evolving into a divine being. So that is the journey of life. So in that context, we talked that our body is made up of energy. Most of our body is made of energy and intelligence, right? So energy is freely flowing from the top of our head to the bottom of our legs. And these energies are actually controlled by the power stations. Those stations, we call them as chakras. Chakras means they resemble a wheel. They look like wheel. They are spherical in shape. So they're continuously moving clockwise and anti-clockwise direction. When they're moving in the clockwise direction, they're absorbing the energy, and when they're actually moving in the opposite direction, they're flushing of the energy, just the way we are inhaling and exhaling. So all these chakras are actually located along the spinal cord. The first chakra is the crown chakra, which is having the colors which are resembling like this. If a person with clairvoyant capability sees the chakra is having these resemblances. And these chakras, they have petal-like things. They're not really petals, but the shape resembles petals. Like this crown chakra has got 1,000 petals, means these are the 1,000 dimensions. So it is located exactly on our on the top of our head. Next is forehead chakra, which is located exactly in between your forehead. This is also known as Jnana chakra, also means knowledge chakra. This is responsible for all knowledge related activities. And then we have Ajna chakra, which is located exactly in between the eyebrows, which is also known as the command and control center. And then we have throat chakra, which is located exactly on the middle of the throat. Then we have front heart chakra. We have the back heart chakra, which are located exactly on the physical heart, on the front and the back side. And then we have solar plexus chakra. These two chakras are the chakras of higher emotions: love, compassion, kindness, consideration, joyfulness, optimism, happiness, peace. They are actually experienced in these chakras, front and back heart chakras. And then we have solar plexus chakra, which actually is located in between their ribs. So there is front solar plexus and back solar plexus chakra. These chakras are lower emotional chakras. Your lower emotions like fear, anger are experienced or rather exist in this region. And then you have spleen chakra, which I talked about yesterday. So this is the chakra which is responsible for regulating air prana. And then we have navel chakra, which is a fire center, which is located in the middle of your navel. And then we have Mengmen chakra, which is located exactly behind this navel chakra. This is the chakra which is controlling your blood pressure. And then we have sex chakra, which is nothing but the lower version of this throat chakra. So sex chakra is responsible for procreation. It is also responsible for all our reproductive activities and the urination, the purification part of it. And then we have basic chakra. So these are the chakras which are the predominant chakras. It's not that we have only these chakras, but we have a various network of other chakras which are located in between our palms. We have two palms, so in between we have palm chakras, and then we have minor chakras on the tip of our fingertips, fingers, and then we have some chakras which are located exactly in the jaw region, and then near this forehead region, either side of the forehead region, and then at the back of the chakra skull, we have another forehead minor chakra, and beneath our feet, we have other soul minor chakras. Like that, we have so many chakras. These chakras are nothing but, you can see that like for distributing energy or power or electricity, we have a network where there are certain transformers, step up transformers, step down transformers, like that. And they're actually locally distributing these powers to different areas. You can visualize these chakras similar to this kind of power stations, because They are continuously regulating the power, or not power exactly, but the life force. The currents that pass through these chakras are nothing but the life forces. From where are we getting the life forces? We are getting life force from the earth, like we are receiving ground energy or earth energy from our soul or feet. It is continuously giving us the energy. Then we are receiving cosmic energy from the middle of our head, that is exactly in the middle of our skull. There is one region where we are actually receiving the divine cosmic energy. We are receiving energy from spleen chakra. We are breathing air. We are absorbing air prana. We are eating food from there. Material food prana. It is actually getting through our navel chakra. Like that, there are various energy sources which we are receiving, and all these energies, they are actually inside our body, and these energies are actually managed by these chakras. Okay, so having understanding about the chakras is a very, very essential requirement if you want to understand the psychic nature of human beings, because all our psychic capabilities are dependent on these chakras. Not all these chakras, but some of these chakras. If you look at these chakras, some of the chakras can be considered as lower chakras, and some of the chakras can be considered as higher chakras. So what are higher chakras? Crown chakra, it is on the top of our head. It is not fully blown up, like it has not yet fully open. Only it's like a bud where only few petals are open. It's like a lotus flower where only few outer petals were open. The rest of the thing are still like a bud. Then we have forehead chakra, which is located. This is also a higher chakra. First higher chakra is the crown chakra. It is the place from which we are receiving cosmic energy. So this is considered as a higher chakra. Forehead chakra is also considered as a higher chakra. Agna chakra is also a higher chakra. Throat chakra is also considered as a higher chakra. Okay. The basic chakra, which is located at the end or at the tip of the spinal cord, is considered as a basic chakra. Even sex chakra is considered as a lower chakra. Mengmen chakra, navel chakra, spleen chakra, these are considered as lower chakras. So if you want to become psychically very sensitive, like if you want your supernatural powers, or if you want your paranormal powers, or if you want your psychic powers, the requirement is that all the higher chakras should be well activated. If these chakras are not activated, you will not experience any kind of psychic phenomena or spiritual things. But most of the people, these chakras, the lower chakras, basic chakra, sex chakra, Mengmen chakra, navel chakra, spleen chakra, solar plexus chakra are well activated. They are very strong compared to the higher chakras. Because they are mostly focused on materialistic things, on material things. They don't have any understanding about higher spiritual things. Even if we try to tell them about something about spirituality, they will not find it interesting. They will not consider that it is real. They consider that this is some imagination or some kind of bakwas. They cannot understand the spiritual dimension of life. They are mostly focused intensely on the materialistic things. So we can see in our own day-to-day life, there are so many people who think that all the spirituality is nothing but some useless stuff. They think that it is not for them. They think that this is something which we have to do at the end of our life. They don't have any understanding. All that they think is making money or getting into a good job or running a profitable business, having materialistic assets, having gold, having big assets, houses are the only essential things in life. They behave as if they come into this world only for pursuing those things. So these people are people who are highly materialistic. They don't have any sense of supernatural or rather some kind of higher realms of life, because their spiritual centers, their spiritual chakras or the higher chakras, they are not activated. They are very small in size. If you look at the sizes of these chakras, you can see them as some kind of disc. So every disc will have some kind of circumference like. So you can actually measure the size of these chakras. So for some people who are not well advanced, their chakras will be very small in size because their energy management capability is low. So the amount of energy that flows, the kind of life force that flows into them is very low. So when the flow of energy is very low, do we need big regulators? We don't need big regulators. Well, small things will do. So when the person is not well activated, not spiritually developed, not physically also developed, then the chakras of those persons can be seen as small, tiny disc. But in case of people who are very successful in their materialistic life, their lower chakras are very big, but the upper chakras are very small. Means it's like a triangle. As we come down, the basic chakra is biggest, then sex chakra is also big, then navel chakra is also big. So these people, they give a lot of importance to materialistic thing like materialistic assets. They love to have good food, they love to have good sexual life, they love to have big materialistic assets and other kind of things. They are very much fond because their lower chakras are well developed, well activated. So these chakras, the activation of these chakras are very essential for a successful materialistic life. If you want to be very successful in your materialistic life, like having a very successful job or a business, having a good romantic life or good married life, or having good children or having good assets, you need to have these chakras strong. If these chakras are poor, you cannot make anything. If you look at sadhus and sannyasis, their lower chakras like the basic chakra, the sex chakra, the navel chakra are very small compared to the higher chakras. The crown chakra is very big because they're mostly indulged in spiritual activities. The crown chakra is well activated. Fourth chakra is also activated. Agna chakra is also activated. Throat chakra is also activated. Heart chakra also activated. But as we come down, the size of the chakras will be small. It is like a funnel. On the top, it is wide. As we come down, it actually narrows down. So this is like a funnel. In case of yogis, sadhus, the chakras would be like a funnel. But in case of highly materialistic people, it would be like a triangle. So it all depends. If you are pursuing materialistic activities very aggressively every day, then your lower chakras will get activated and they will become strong. If on the other hand, most of the time you're sitting and meditating, then what happens? Your higher chakras, they tend to get activated. So in order to have a very successful living, you need to actually balance both your higher chakras or lower chakras. So as you actually do materialistic things, you also focus on the spiritual activities, then both the chakras will tend to be in the similar size. Means it is like a pillar. From top to bottom, all the chakras are well activated. So we should ensure that all our chakras are activated. Means they actually open up. They are like birds. But once we start exercising certain things, certain spiritual exercises, they'll start slowly unfolding themselves. One by one, one by one, one by one. The basic chakra, it gets opened up. Sex chakra gets opened up. Mengmayan chakra opens up. Like that, slowly, one by one, one by one, one by one, all the chakras will open. For a highly matured, successful people, both spiritual and materialistic people, their chakras are well developed. There are no problems, no complications. And if you look at the chakras themselves, they are actually radiating brilliant colors. You can see beautiful colors. Almost all the chakras, they have this kind of chakras. Means crown chakra is having exactly this kind of color composition. Basic chakra is having this kind of composition. So how do we activate these chakras? This is the challenge. So if you want to become psychically empowered, if you want to become a clairvoyant, one chakra has to be activated. What is that chakra? The chakra that has to be activated if you want to become a clairvoyant is your forehead chakra. If your forehead chakra is well developed, all the petals are properly opened and it is functioning very healthy, and if it is actually highly matured, then accessing information either in the form of images, in the form of sound waves, in the form of feelings is a natural phenomena. Why people don't experience psychic or spiritual experiences? It is because their higher chakras are not yet activated. You need to activate these things. So there are different ways of actually activating these chakras. So one chakra is Kundalini Yoga, one method is Kundalini Yoga, wherein if you start practicing Kundalini regularly, all these chakras will start activating one by one in a gradual manner. Because Kundalini is a cosmic force which is present in every human being in a very dormant form. It is not active. Means it is actually, it comes with birth as part of genetic encoding. That power, supreme power, cosmic power, it is like a seed which is not yet ready to sprout. It is at a dormant state. It is like an egg. It has not yet come into existence in a full form. So Kundalini Shakti is also existing in human body. It is residing exactly at the tip of our spinal cord, and it is like a coiled snake. The energy, the cosmic energy, the Kundalini energy is in the form of a coiled snake. So there are certain techniques where we can actually wake up this Kundalini Shakti. And then once it is awakened, it will start moving in upward direction along the spinal cord as if it is like a snake. It actually moves like a snake. While it is actually moving along the spinal cord, it actually crosses all these chakras one by one. First, it actually touches the basic chakra. When Kundalini energy is actually moving from the tip of the spinal cord, it just touches the basic chakra. The moment the Kundalini Shakti touches the basic chakra starts getting activated. Then it moves to the sex chakra. The sex chakra will start getting activated. Then it moves to the Mengmayan chakra. Mengmayan chakra, we are not supposed to activate Mengmayan chakra because it is very dangerous. Let's not talk about it. Then it moves to the navel chakra. And navel chakra, it gets activated. And then solar plexus chakra. Then it moves to the throat chakra, Agna chakra, forehead chakra, and crown chakra. It moves up. As it is moving up, it is actually activating these chakras. The more frequency it is touching these chakras, they get activated. So in our group, we used to regularly practice. Some of the members who are present in this group now, they're also regular meditators. And in our early morning meditation, which used to start at 4 o'clock, we used to do this Kundalini sadhana. So it is about activating your Kundalini Shakti. So there are certain negative aspects of Kundalini because Kundalini Shakti is a very, very powerful Shakti. It has to be handled very carefully. You should not play with it. It's like playing with this thing. So people who doesn't understand about Kundalini Shakti, using certain techniques, they want to immediately activate their third eye. So they have some methods which are not at all safe. So there are some people who claim that, okay, we will activate your Kundalini Shakti within 5 minutes. Your third eye will be open and you will be getting all powers. Those techniques are very, very dangerous. So you have a bud of a rose. So you want to see that the rose is fully blossomed. So if you try to open the petals of the bud, what will happen? When the bud is not yet ready to open, you are only trying to artificially open one by one. Means what will happen? The bud will be destroyed. So similarly, because of our eagerness to awaken Kundalini and experience all the cosmic things, if you are trying to go with shortcut methods, it is going to be harmful. Some of the people, they even become lunatic, means they lose the control of their mind, because unregulated Kundalini energy is very dangerous. But if it is gradually awakened and if it is gradually tuned over a period of time, then just the way a natural flower blossoms without damaging itself, it also opens up. So these chakras have to be opened up one by one. Not one by one, but what I mean to say is in a gradual incremental manner. You can fix a target saying that, okay, let me practice this for 6 months intensely. Let me experience what it is. Keep doing sadhana. Don't be in a hurry to get psychic experiences from day one you want to get it. So you should understand one fact that for some people, all these chakras can be activated within a matter of few days. For some people, few weeks. For some people, few months. For some people, it could be few years. And some people maybe not in this incarnation, next incarnation. So you don't have to really think that, okay, you have to wait for a few years before you actually get these experiences. No, it is not like that, because whatever you have done in your previous incarnations, they're not going to get wiped off. If you have done sadhana for some amount of period during your previous incarnations, and let us assume that you are supposed to climb 1,000 steps to become spiritually enlightened. Let us assume that we have to climb 1,000 steps to get spiritually awakened. So in one incarnation, you have started your spiritual journey and you have climbed around 300 steps. So next incarnation, when you want to start your spiritual practices, you don't have to start from 0 step. You'll start from 300 steps. You have already crossed. Now you're ready to climb from 300 plus. In this incarnation, maybe you will reach up to 800. So next incarnation, you'll start from 900 step. So that is how it is. So you don't have to be really worried thinking that maybe we have to wait long before we experience the blossoming of these chakras. Not necessary. Some of you might have done a lot of spiritual sadhanas in your previous incarnations. I bet almost every one of you might have done intense spiritual exercises in your past incarnations. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been sitting in this session. So the time has come for you to start again climbing up. So that is how it was so designed that you are attending this program so that you will actually recall all the previous experiences, and then you'll be ready for your spiritual journey. And maybe within few weeks, maybe you'll start invoking all your dormant powers. There is a possibility. I'm not guaranteeing you because I've not done your personal reading. I did not assess your personal spiritual level of maturity, so I don't have any clue, but I'm just telling you this. So in order to become psychically empowered, in order to activate your hidden psychic powers, what is the essential thing? The essential thing is to activate these particular chakras. So by now, most of you might be having well activated basic chakra, sex chakra, navel chakra, spleen chakra, because by and large, you people are well off, successful till this extent. I don't know your personal financial achievements of these things, but going with normal people, you're 1,000 times better, because you are actually part of the mainstream of the society, where you are able to attend a Zoom session, where you are able to contribute, where you are able to actually make an active participation in this contemporary world. But lakhs and lakhs of people, they don't even know what we are doing here. Far off villages, they're still living at a rudimentary level. So compared to those people, we are 1,000 times better. But because of our own nature, we think that, okay, we have not accomplished, we are not successful, we are not that great. That is our tendency, human tendency. But if we start counting our own blessings, we are blessed, we have so many gifts, we are having a good life compared to other people. So that way I say that, okay, our lower chakras are well activated. We had children, so our sex chakra is very activated. Basic chakra, we are healthy, we are living a active life, where our basic chakra is also active, navel chakra is also active, but we are not sure whether our higher chakras are activated or not. So even if it is not activated, now we have come to the session to activate our chakras. So earlier I was talking about two types of powers. Spiritual powers. I told you spiritual powers can be categorized broadly into information, ability to access information, and ability to act on the information or control things which you want to control. So best example of thing is, we are going to a village, we went to the railway station, there is nobody to tell anything. So we don't know when the train is going to come. The arrival, the time of arrival of the train is the information. When it is going to come. Is it going to come now, or is it going to come tomorrow, or is it going to come day after tomorrow? There is nobody to tell you, there is no timetable, there is nothing in the railway station. Then how will you access that information? So that information means, in this universe, information plays a lot of role. We need to know. So that is what is known as information. And suppose the train has come. So the train has come, but your family members have not yet arrived to the station. The train is about to leave, but you want to control it. So how do you control it? Maybe you go to the guard, or you ask him, sir, please hold the train for 5 minutes. That is one way you're controlling the state of train. Or you go to the train, pull the chain, and the train gets stopped. What is this act? Is it the act of accessing information or controlling a situation? This is controlling. So that is how the ability to access information is one type of power, and the ability to control the state or the situation is another power. So having information without the power to control is useless, because you feel powerless. You know that something is going to happen, something bad is happening, but you are not in a position to control it. So what is fun in doing it? So I'll tell you an example. This was long back. I was actually doing Kundalini meditation. That was during 2000, year 2000. I was sitting and I was doing Kundalini meditation. And all of a sudden, I got a visual. I was seeing a wedding event, a wedding mandap, in which there is fire. There is a fire accident. People are running here and there. In Kalyana Mandapam, there is a lot of panic because fire broke there. I was meditating, I was seeing a vivid image of that one. I woke up and I thought, what is this? Fire accident in a marriage wedding, in a wedding ceremony. I was thinking like that, and I automatically went to my sofa, sat, and just casually switched on the TV. There was a news item which is actually telecasting an incident in Tamil Nadu wherein there is a fire accident in a wedding ceremony. The same event which I've seen while I was sitting in meditation, I've seen it on TV after the meditation. Means when something is happening there, my senses, they have pursued this event and it has actually given me that event. Though I'm not connected to that event, but that information which was actually broadcast into the universe was actually captured by me. When the incident has happened, there was an automatic broadcasting of this information into this universe. So as part of the universe, I was actually sitting at a receptive mode. Then my senses have actually captured that information and it has given me that information. I was physically not present there. I'm only at a distance, but in a receptive mode where I'm actually ready to absorb information. So I got the glimpses of that thing. Fine. Okay. I got this information, but what can I do sitting here? Nothing. Maybe I can call up fire engines, but it's useless because it is actually being transmitted in TV. So already firefighting people will be there. Even if there is no firefighting force there, what can I do sitting thousands of miles away from this scene of accident? I can't do anything, no? What is the use? Is it for education purpose or for entertainment purpose that I got that news? If I don't have the power to control that situation, there is no point in accessing that information because for me it is a garbage. But if I can control that incident, then that is what is known as control power. Even without going there, if I can actually change or control an event which is happening somewhere else, then it is meaningful, right? So these powers, I see information and control are the two ultimate powers that we can aspire to have. So if every person, nature has actually designed in such a way that human beings, they are not born with fully blossomed capabilities, though they were born with seeds or the potential for this kind of powers. By birth, we don't have these kind of powers. Just imagine if every person is having this power, unconditional access to information and unconditional power to take control over the situation. Will it be good or will it be bad? If it is in the hands of a Rakshasa, it will be bad. He will use this power to access information about you, me, and everybody else, and he will actually control our lives. And he can actually create a lot of pain to our life. So if this power is in the hands of a bad person, it is going to be horrible. Life is not going to be harmonious. But if this kind of power is with a person who is having a very kind heart, very compassionate, then will this be good or bad for the society or for the individuals in society? So it is going to be very, very good. If it is in the hands of Ravan, it is going to be bad. If it is in the hands of Rama, it is going to be good. So this power, the nature has not actually given to all by birth. So before these two chakras get activated, before these powers get activated, you need to evolve into a good human being. Means you need to have well activated front and back heart chakras. So this forehead chakra is giving you the power to access your information anytime, anywhere, any kind of information. This forehead chakra is going to provide. And your power to control situation depends on your Ajna chakra. This is the master chakra. And your heart chakra is basically a gateway to your humanity. Like if you are a good human being, if you're a person, a very good human being, you have a well activated front heart and back heart chakras. You are so, for people who are very, very kind, compassionate, tolerant, understanding, they have big heart chakras. For narrow-minded people, the heart chakras are going to be very, very small. So for the precondition for this forehead chakra and Ajna chakra to be well activated is that your front heart and back heart chakra should be well developed. So you have to put emphasis not only on your personality, but also on your characteristics. As a human being, what are your predominant characters? When you are asked, tell me your good qualities, we all say, hey, I'm a good man, I'm a good woman. I love people, but people, they don't love me. I'm always helpful to people, but people are not helpful to me. Like that, they keep complaining. Then we can take it for granted that they're not good people. The only thing that they're good people. Right? So, characteristics, you cannot assess your own characteristics. Other people around you will have to give you the feedback. So what are your predominant characteristics? Are you a nice person or a bad person? Are you an angry person or a cool, calm, loving guy? Are you a friendly guy or are you person with evil intents? Like that, we have to start disciplining ourselves. We have to acquire good qualities. So we should actually become very lovable. We should be very kind. We should be compassionate. We should always be tolerant. Okay. We should always be humble. We should respect other people. Like that, we should practice this kind of noble virtues. When we are actually practicing these kind of things on day-to-day basis, naturally your front heart and back heart chakras will start blossoming. Means they become well activated. So when these chakras are well activated, they are opening up the doors for the opening or blossoming of other higher chakras. So in life situation, we have so many options.
You order for the idea. 98 480 43
Yeah. So if you want to become psychically empowered, what is required? Your heart chakra should be well activated. How do you activate your heart chakras? It is by practicing peace, love, joyfulness, and other higher emotions. So in day-to-day life, we have options available. You can be kind to people, you can be rude to people. You can actually envy people or you can admire people. You have the choice of actually hating people, you have the choice of loving people. You have the choice in your day-to-day life, you have a choice. You can gossip about a person in his absence behind him, or you can actually protect him from being gossiped. You have a choice. Like if you start behaving in a very, very positive manner, you are actually activating your heart chakras. you are actually fostering love and compassion, kindness towards animals and other beings. Are we doing it every day? Sometimes we are doing, sometimes we are not doing. So your first step starts from here. Your character matters a lot. So how predominant are these qualities in you? Are you an angry person? Are you rude to all the people? Are you rude to your spouse? Are you rude to your children? Are you rude to your subordinates? Are you rude to people on road? Are you rude to beggars? Answer the question. If you say yes, then it is time for you to change. Nobody is perfect in this world. You are also not perfect. I'm also not perfect. So we should be tolerant to each other. So let us practice these virtues like kindness, compassion, love, tolerance, peace, harmony, joyfulness. So these are the things which should be in us. These are the things which are not in us. Instead, what are there? We have hatred, we have anger, we have depression. All kind of negative emotions, we are carrying them. I'm not specifically pointing out at anybody, but what I'm actually saying is, by and large, most of the people, common people, we are having these negative emotions more than the positive emotions. So we have to make a shift from these negative emotions to positive emotion. Flush out all the negative emotions that is existing in you. You might be having some hatred for some people in your life. Maybe you will not like your in-laws. Maybe you will not like some caste group. Maybe you will not like some religion group people. Like that, we have different biases. Though we have not encountered any negative with them, we still have that kind of hatred. As an Indian, it is our natural right to hate Pakistanis, Chinese. As Hindus, it's our natural right to hate Muslims or criticize Christians. So these kind of things are not really necessary. You need to drop all these kind of useless negative emotions. Remove all kind of negative emotions from your body. See, whatever we have experienced in your life, all the bad negative experiences, emotions that you have experienced, they actually reside in your back solar plexus chakra. Your back solar plexus chakra is a repository of all your negative experiences. So, since your childhood, you have been subjected to some kind of assault, some kind of humiliation, some kind of attacks. All those wounds you're still having in your back solar plexus chakra. You need to cleanse them up. You need to remove all the experiences, all the impressions of these experiences. That is how you need to get liberated from all kind of negative emotions. And in its place, you need to foster the higher emotions. That is something which is useful not only for acquiring your psychic powers, but also for creating a beautiful life for yourself. Never do anything which you don't want others doing to you. You don't want anybody to crack jokes on you. You don't want anybody to criticize you. You don't want anybody to humiliate you. You don't want anybody to attack you. But why are you doing all these things to people in your life? Whether you accept it or not, we do this to our people in life. When our boss calls us and gives us left and right, we'll simply bend our head and say, sorry, sir, sorry, sir, sorry, sir. Please, sir, calm. But some small mistake that your son or daughter does at home, you'll jump and you'll pounce upon them and you'll give them left and right. Just because they're at a vulnerable place, you're showing off your power. That is a very bad situation. You don't like anybody speaking anything against you, so you also don't do it. So it happens only when you can empathize with other people. If you think that you are the only soul and the rest people are stones, you treat them in a different manner. But you should understand that other people in your life are as precious as you are. For them, they are very precious. For their parents, they're also very precious. So be kind and compassionate to all the people in your life. You need to have tolerance. You cannot expect people to behave the way you expect them to behave. So people have different mental makeup. We need to tolerate. So that is how we can open up the doors for higher things. So when the heart chakra is well developed, and then when the throat chakra is also well developed, what will happen? Whatever you say tends to manifest. Why do we go to spiritual gurus, masters, and take their blessings? When we go to the spiritual masters and divine entities, we bow our head and ask, please bless us. They say, okay, tadastu. May you be blessed with good children. May you be blessed with good job. Maybe you be blessed with good income. Like that, they bless. They're actually expressing, they're actually saying from the throat chakra, they're saying, Jite raho, something like that. So when your throat chakra is well activated, you're going to acquire another divine power, that is the power of manifesting what you speak. So today, you might not be getting results. You are saying that money comes to me easily, constantly, and in great abundance. You're making this affirmation, but that affirmation might not work. Even if you're chanting it every day, it might not work because your throat chakra doesn't have that power of manifestation. So through intense spiritual practices, your throat chakra, if it is very much activated, if it is well developed and matured, whatever you speak tends to manifest. Both the good as well as the bad. If you curse, that will also happen, but you will also get some negative karma. But if you bless, that will also manifest. So people who are in spiritual practices for prolonged period of times, they tend to develop a kind of power, what they call it as Vaksuddhi. Means what they speak tend to manifest, either it is good or bad. So always be cautious when you are opening your mouth. What comes out of our mouth is more important than what goes inside our mouth. What we eat is okay, that's not that important. But what comes out of your mind should be well thought of. When you're talking to other people, talk only what is relevant. Talk what is right. Don't talk other things. Even for fun's sake, don't curse other people. So we have the tendency of saying, you useless fellow, you are fit for nothing. You'll not get any job. You'll not get any good thing in life. We curse people who are dependent on us. When we are angry, we want to show that we are superior, then we start smashing them with our words. So what happens? If you are a spiritual person, they manifest. They become curses to those people. So this is also one psychic power, Vaksuddhi. So that is how words are like emotional bullets. What comes out? Even if you stab a person with a knife, it gets cured after some period. But if you use your words as emotional bullets to hurt people, they get wounded and they remain for long throughout their life. So that is how, if you look from clairvoyant perspective at your back solar plexus chakra, you'll find so many wounds which were caused by the emotional bullets in the form of your words. What really hurts? Your words hurts other people. You don't have to really use a weapon. You can just use your words to hurt or damage a person. So throat chakra is significant from that perspective. It is also higher creative power. So it will actually unleash all your hidden creative potential and also the power of speech. So you need to activate even this throat chakra. Then we move into Ajna chakra. Ajna chakra is what? This is a chakra which is located exactly in between our eyebrows. Many people refer to it as third eye, but according to other philosophies, third eye is not located in the Ajna chakra. Instead, it is actually located in the brow chakra. Okay. So Ajna chakra, Ajna as such means command, commanding. This chakra is known as master chakra because this chakra regulates all other chakras. The wellness of other chakras are dependent on this particular Ajna chakra. So this Ajna chakra is an energy center, and this energy center has a physical counterpart which is known as pituitary gland, which is located exactly in this region, in this diagram. So it is a small gland secreting some kind of hormones, wherein it is actually commanding, it is sending commands to all other bodily parts or other glands through chemical messages. It is dictating everything. So this has got a physical counterpart, that is the pituitary gland. And the significance of this Ajna chakra is this chakra is a chakra which is responsible for our manifestation power. If you want to manifest anything, you should have a very strong Ajna chakra. What is manifestation? Manifestation is nothing but the transformation of a non-material thought entity into a tangible physical entity. So everything exists twice. Everything in this world is born twice. First in the form of a thought inside the mind, and then after some time it comes out in the form of a physical entity. So you want to build a house. Where is the house now? It is only inside your mind. So what is the nature of that house? It is a thought entity. But over a period of time, this small thought entity becomes your physical reality. Something which is existing inside your mind moves out of your mind and appears in the form of a physical object. This is what we call it as manifestation. We manifest all our dreams and desires. We have so many dreams. We want to have a car, we want to have a big business, we want to become a film star. All these thoughts, when they become a physical reality, we call it as manifestation power. So Ajna chakra is responsible for manifestation of all your dreams and desires. Then we have forehead chakra, which is located exactly in the center of our forehead. This chakra is known as Phala chakra, brow chakra, not brow chakra, forehead chakra. So this chakra has got a physical counterpart in the form of pineal gland. This gland is also known as spiritual gland. It is a very small gland. Doctors and medical scientists, they have very, very little understanding about the role of this particular pineal gland. we still don't have complete understanding about the real nature of this pineal gland. This is a mysterious gland in human body. So why it is mysterious? The real functionality is not yet understood, but certain things are known about this pineal gland. It is actually in the shape of a pine cone. So it is basically inside exactly in the middle of the brain between the two hemispheres. And this is considered to be the spiritual connecting point, or rather it is the gateway between the physical world and the spiritual world. One mysterious thing is that one chemical which is known as dimethyltryptamine is actually secreted by this particular pineal gland. Every time we sleep, small amount of this DMT, dimethyltryptamine, is secreted by this gland. And because of this DMT, dimethyltryptamine, we get all kind of imaginations. All the dream experiences that we are getting is only because of this molecule called DMT, dimethyltryptamine. So this DMT is not a freely available drug. It is actually categorized as a hallucinogenic drug, which is banned in almost every country. Like heroin, cocaine, even DMT belongs to that kind of drug. Though it is a natural drug, it actually induces some kind of hallucinations or some kind of imaginations, some kind of 3D reality, virtual reality. So during our sleep, almost every one of us, we have tiny drops of DMT secreted by our mind, our brain, pineal gland. Because of this only, we are getting dreams during our sleep. If we take more of DMT artificially, without depending on our pineal gland, like if we take DMT in the form of syrup or whatever it is, like how other drugs are taken, it actually takes you into different kinds of realms, non-physical dimensions. It actually takes you up to a different places. It could be like an astral trip. I've not tried it. I want to try it, but it is not available. So people have actually taken this kind of DMT for research purpose. There is a lot of research which is going in US and other parts of the world about DMT. So they have experienced beautiful spiritual experiences. Researchers have concluded that all the spiritual experiences that we are undergoing is because of the DMT that is actually released naturally by our pineal gland during our meditative state or during our sleep state. And you might be thinking that this DMT is a banned drug, it is harmful like other drugs, but it is not the case. DMT is a chemical which is released by many of the plants. Many of the plants which are living on earth, they actually secrete good amount of DMT. And the research has proven that using this DMT chemical molecule, plants, they communicate feelings between them. We think that plants, they don't have emotions, they don't have feelings, they don't have any expressions. But the recent research on the plants has revealed that even plants communicate the way we communicate. But they don't use voice messages or voice signals or sound signals. Instead, they use the chemicals to actually express or rather exchange their own feelings. So one experiment was conducted wherein one person is approaching a tree with an axe blade in his hand. Immediately, the rhythm or the frequency of the tree has changed, and it started communicating the same thing to other trees. And the trees, they have actually changed their forms. Change the form means not the actual physical form, but something, a defensive kind of mechanism wherein you see a withdrawal kind of symptom in the trees. So that clearly proves that plants uses DMT for communicating among themselves or for communicating some important information to the other trees. So a lot more needs to be studied about DMT. Okay, DMT is one chemical which is secreted by the pineal gland in human body. That's the only organ which is secreting this DMT. But the entire nature of this pineal gland is still not understood by human mankind. So still the research is going on, and we should keep our fingers crossed. So whatever psychic experiences maybe which I'm reporting is because of this DMT secretion. It could be. One interesting fact that is observed about pineal gland is at the time of birth, or rather at the time of formation of the fetus in the body, at one point in time, there is lot of secretion of DMT by the spinal gland. I don't remember the exact period, maybe around 3 months or so, when the brain is completely formed and when the pineal gland is also formed. Suddenly there is an episode of sudden secretion of DMT, lot of DMT by the pineal gland when the body is still in infant stage. And again, at the point of death, suddenly there is lot of secretion of DMT by the spinal gland. So at the time of birth, means at the time of formation of baby, and at the time of exit from this worldly life, there is lot of DMT which is secreted by this pineal gland. What does it mean? Maybe it is signifying the entry of the soul and the exit of the soul. This is just an interpretation. It's not an established conclusion, but I'm saying some spiritual activity is happening. And this pineal gland is actually specifying it. So we need to understand a lot about it. So what we need to understand is we need to have a well-developed forehead chakra for us to access information from different dimensions. So this pineal gland, which is secreting dimethyltryptamine, is actually giving all kind of spiritual experiences, means it is actually discarding or rather disassociating or disengaging us from the bonds of the physical realm, and it is actually giving us the glimpses of other dimensions of life. There are so many dimensions which it takes. So all the remote travel, all the what you call astral travels, all the psychic experiences, all the information that we are getting is only because of the well-activated forehead chakra. The well-activated forehead chakra indicates well-matured pineal gland. The property of this pineal gland is calcification, means when in the bodies of young babies, it is like a jelly, soft jelly. As people age, even this pineal gland starts becoming hardened. In old people, the pineal gland is very hard, like it's like calcified bone. This is what is known as calcification. So when it becomes calcified, it becomes brittle kind of thing. So that is when you don't get any secretions. So we should ensure that our pineal gland is healthy so that it secretes right amount of this DMT stuff in order to achieve this kind of spiritual experiences. So now we will actually see how we can activate our forehead chakra, how we can activate our brow chakra or the Agna chakra. We should also talk about our throat chakra. What about the spinal cord, the spiritual chakra, the top chakra, Sahasra chakra? So we need to understand even about that. There's no point in activating this chakra, this chakra, this chakra, and leaving this one. So whether we like it or not, because of the spiritual practices that we do, our spiritual chakra, or rather our crown chakra, it gets automatically opened as we are doing all these sadhanas. So we should understand one important thing. There is one thing called spiritual cord, which is passing straight through the middle of our skull into the body. It's like a hair, thin hair, foil of thin hair, like our just hair. Every person is having the spiritual cord that is also known as spiritual antenna. Every being is having. It is not visible to our naked eye. But if you know how to do scanning, you can actually sense the spiritual cord. For ordinary people, the size of the spiritual cord is almost the size of a hair strand. How thick is the hair strand? Very, very thin. Like that, our connection, spiritual cord. This is known as Antarkarna. It is actually connecting us with the higher spiritual realms. Means we cannot cut off it. You can feel the Antarkarna. In case of people who follow a lot of spiritual practices, their spiritual cord size will be significant. It's like a rope. For ordinary people who doesn't have any understanding of spirituality or the higher realms of life, their spiritual cord will be very, very thin, just like the strand of a hair. But in case of people who lost touch with the higher realms of life, who are into all bad kind of things, who are totally lost, they have a spiritual cord which is blocked. So this spiritual cord is something which is actually transmitting spiritual energy and spiritual intelligence. Whether we like it or not, there is a continuous flow of spiritual energy and spiritual intelligence into us. It is connecting us to the spiritual planes. So as a matter of fact, it is like internet bandwidth. Let us assume that you have an internet connection with very, very low bandwidth. Means it is actually giving you just 4 or 5 bytes of data per second. Just 4 or 5 drops of information in a second. Means it is slowly flowing. Why it is flowing slow? It is because the wire which is transmitting this, or which is rather allowing this information to flow through it, the pipe, the information pipe, is very, very small, very, very narrow. When the tube is very, very narrow, the inner chamber is very, very small. That's how the flow of liquid, the flow of any stuff is very, very slow. But if you, on the other hand, if the pipe is a very big pipe having big diameter, more and more water can actually flow through it. You should see your Antarkarna as this one. So for people who doesn't have any spiritual practices, who are at a very basic level of existence, eat, sleep kind of thing, their spiritual cord is very, very narrow. It's like a limited internet bandwidth. So when you want to get information for your problems in your life, you'll not get any information because the net connectivity is not there. But if you practice regularly, and if you can actually have this spiritual cord much bigger in circumference, more information can come into this one. As a matter of fact, for every question that we are asking God or any other Deva, Devidi, anything, God, please give me a solution. God, please help me. We are asking, but we are not getting the answers. Why? Because it is not because he is not answering. It is because he is answering, but the information pipe that you are carrying is not allowing the information to flow uninterrupted. It is going slow, slow, slow. It is taking, instead of coming in 10 seconds, it is taking 10 hours. That is the limitation we are having. So if you want to have free communication with the higher realms, what is important? What is important is your spiritual cord. How big is your spiritual cord matters a lot to you to become a psychic person. At the same time, we are also receiving a lot of information from the higher realms. We are connected. We are wirelessly connected. There are no wires, no visible wires, but there is a wireless connectivity. So you're continuously transmitting information saying that what is this, why it is not happening to me, other kind of things, that thing, you're transmitting the questions, but you're not getting the answers. Why? It is because of our own internal noises. So if you look at our mind, is it at rest now? It is not at rest. It is continuously generating so many thoughts, one thought of the other, one thought of the other, like that. There are so many mental clutter which is happening in our head, inside our head. These are all noises. It is creating a lot of noise. When there is a lot of noise, can you hear a small music being played? The noise is not allowing the music to reach your eardrums. Same is the case. Information is flowing. First of all, it is flowing at a very slow pace. Even if it is coming, there is a lot of internal noise, mental clutter, which is not allowing you to hear what the information is coming from the higher realms. Why? Because you have never trained your mind to keep quiet. One of the biggest achievements that anybody can claim is that getting into a thoughtless state within 5 seconds. Can you get into a thoughtless state in 5 seconds and remain in that thoughtless state for 5 minutes? So this is one of the difficult or rather challenging tasks for most of the people. For most of the people, doing meditation is the most difficult thing. The funny part of meditation is that meditation is the seemingly most easiest thing. What is that to do meditation? Sit, close your eyes, that's it. Very simple act, but that is the biggest or rather the toughest thing in life. Because for untrained people, sitting in a steady posture for even 2 minutes is a big challenge. Most of the people, they can't sit. They become so restless. Their body starts giving them some kind of uneasiness. Their mind starts shouting, what nonsense is this? Why are you making me like this? There is a lot of thought activity that goes on inside the mind of a person who is not trained in meditation. But a person who practices meditation, he will step down into a thoughtless state, just the way a person walks from the bank of the river into the river. He simply just moves and then he indulges in that. So I don't know how good are you in terms of meditation. I don't know whether you really understand the significance of meditation. Maybe some of you might be meditating, but you might not be understanding the real significance of meditation. The real significance of meditation is to calm down your mental activity. On an average, every human being generates around 1 lakh thoughts in a day. 60,000 to 1 lakh thoughts a day average. Most of the thoughts are useless thoughts. They're fit for nothing thoughts. Even then you keep doing that activity. That is just a wastage of precious mental resource. Instead, if you allow your mind to calm down, in an hour, maybe you're generating 1 lakh thoughts, 10,000 thoughts. So your mind is occupied in terms of actually processing all these thoughts. But instead of 10,000 thoughts, if you can have only 2-3 thoughts, how much mental energy are you saving? It is only the mental energy that you are saving, but you are also reducing or rather cancelling all the noises which are created by these noisy thoughts. When there are no noises, whatever signal that you are receiving, the divine intelligence that is coming into you will appear to you, will present itself to you in the form of visuals, in the form of visions, in the form of voice messages, in the form of feelings. So now you might have understood how to become a clairvoyant, how to become a clairsentient, how to become a clairaudient. It is by silencing your thoughts. The moment you bring down the count of thoughts from 10,000 to 10 thoughts in an hour, means if you are reducing, minimizing the number of thoughts, the noise is actually getting dampened and the signal is being heard loud and clear. As you are practicing meditation, there is another advantage. The spiritual cord will start expanding, means the bandwidth is expanding. So when the bandwidth is expanding, your communication with the higher realm is very spontaneous and very rapid. Like your broadband line connection is giving. Earlier it used to take 5 minutes to load one picture, but now with broadband, within 5 seconds, we'll be able to download 50 GB or more than that. This information is just given spontaneously. On top of that, there are no noisy things, so no distraction. You'll be able to process your information. So you'll be able to get information from the cosmic sources when you are able to silence your mind. How you can silence your mind? It is through the process of meditation. In the process of meditation, the number of thoughts that are getting generated will come down gradually and drastically over a period of time. So when you start off your meditation, maybe it will take almost 10 minutes for you to get into a thoughtless state or unconscious state. But if you practice it for 10 years, maybe within 2 seconds, you can get into that thoughtless state. When you are in a thoughtless state, all the information that is broadcasted in the universe is actually being received by you. Whatever information is of concern, of relevance, you'll absorb it, the rest you just let it go off. So that is how you can become a clairvoyant. Yeah. So I've given the theoretical part of clairvoyance, how to become a clairvoyant, clairaudient. So the message is very simple. The message is that calm down your mental activity. To calm down your mental activity, you have to practice some kind of isolation. So when you're actually sitting in a busy street, what is happening? There are many people who are passing by, and all person is actually carrying his load of thoughts. While he's passing, some of the thoughts are actually getting encountered by you, and they are in turn igniting or rather stimulating similar thoughts within your aura, and now you're actually running in a chain of thoughts. But if you want to reduce the number of thoughts, go into an isolated place. Go to a farmhouse where there are no people. When there are no people, there are no thought entities, because every human being is having a big envelope in which all the thought entities that they have been accumulating over the lifetime are floating. So when we are actually coming across one person, we are not only coming across that person at the physical level, but also at the mental level. We are actually touching their thoughts. Some of the thoughts which are similar to our thoughts, they start resonating. That is how we start getting new thoughts. And then one thought leads to another thought, one thought leads to other thought. That is how it is creating a mental clutter. So we need to calm down this mental clutter, so that whatever information we are receiving through the spiritual God, it is getting inside us. Okay, so this is the essence. So we will do a small meditation. It is not exactly a meditation. So you might have heard of the concept of resonant frequency. See, everything in this universe has got its own unique vibrational frequency. So people who have already attended some of my classes, they might be quite familiar with this concept of resonance or the concept of vibration. So according to the spiritual laws which were given by the ancient Egyptians, there are 7 laws. Those laws were known as the Kabbalion principles. The Kabbalion principles, they say all is mental. I'm not going to talk about these things. I will take 1-2 points. The second law says, as above, so below. And the third principle says, everything is in an eternal state of vibration. So this is the point I'm going to take, law of vibration. According to this, everything in this universe is in a constant or rather in a perpetual state of vibration. They are continuously moving. If you look at the sun, sun is moving, it is not stationary. If you look at moon, moon is vibrating, it is not stationary. If you look at the atoms, even the atoms, they are vibrating. Everything in this universe is in a constant state of vibration. And the best part of it is we cannot measure the number of frequencies that exist in this universe. You are looking different from me because your vibrational frequency is totally different from my vibrational frequency. Your body is having those characteristics because it has got unique vibrational frequency. My body also having vibrational frequency. As human beings, we share one bandwidth within which we are operating. And that bandwidth is allowing us to look like human beings. So one subset of the entire frequency is being occupied by our human race. So our human race, let us assume that our human race is having a frequency which is starting with 2.x frequency. So all human beings will have a frequency which starts with 2.1.xyzz something, 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 something. We differ from animals because our vibrational frequency is different. We differ from planets because our vibrational frequency is different from those things. We differ from plants because our vibrational frequencies are different. As human beings, okay, if our series is starting with 2, maybe for plants it is starting with 3, for animals it is starting with 4. Like that, as a species, we might be having one common denominator as our vibrational frequency, and within that, we human beings, whether alive or whether dead or yet to come into existence, we all have unique vibrational frequency, which we call it as vibrational signatures. Just the way our fingerprints are unique, just the way our iris are unique, from other people on earth. Even our vibrational frequency is different. Okay, so this is one thing you need to understand. Just the way we all have vibrational frequencies, even our chakras have got certain frequencies. Crown chakra is having certain frequency, Jnana chakra is having another frequency, this chakra is having another frequency, this is having another frequencies. Like that, every chakra has got its own frequency. Hello. Shubhodayam. Nenu meeting lo unna. Online meeting. Anything important? So all these chakras are having some frequency zones. So when a chakra is well activated, it will have a different frequency, and when it is not yet developed, when it is in the process of development, it will have a different kind of vibrational frequency. So here we need to understand that we have chakras, but all these chakras, are they matured? Are they vibrating at the required frequency or not? Is the matter of concern or importance. So for example, your forehead chakra is supposed to be oscillating or vibrating at a frequency of X, which is equal to say 7.9.3.7, something like that. We don't know those values. So if it is not vibrating at that pace, that means it is not yet activated. But once it starts vibrating with that particular frequency, then the performance of this chakra will be at its heights. It's a established or defined level. So most of our chakras might not be at that, might not be vibrating at the natural frequency. So in order to activate this, what we can do, we can actually take the concept of forced resonance to activate these chakras. What is this forced resonance? Forced resonance is a concept where we might have actually studied during our physics, during our school. So you might be familiar with tuning forks. Tuning forks are objects having a stand and having two tongues. When we hit it, they start vibrating it. So these tuning forks are used to actually demonstrate the concept of forced resonance. So everything has got vibrational frequency. So let us assume that this is a tuning fork. So if I take a hammer and if I hit it, it will start vibrating. So what rate it is this vibrating? Maybe if it is a tuning fork having a frequency of 100, it will vibrate 100 times in a second. If it is something which is 200, it will vibrate 200 times per second. Like that, they behave. So the forced vibration concept is like that. You have a tuning fork and you have multiple sets of these tuning forks. So in a room, there are tuning forks which are having frequency of 100, 200, 250, 150, like that. There are multiple sets. So you pick up one tuning fork randomly and then hit it. For example, if it is a tuning fork having a frequency of 100 Hertz, then what will happen is other tuning forks in the room which are having exactly the frequency of 100 will start vibrating naturally. Even without touching them, they will start vibrating wirelessly. For example, if there are 10 tuning forks with 100 frequency, out of 100 tuning forks, you hit 100, one tuning fork having a frequency of 100, the rest of the tuning forks will vibrate as if somebody is shaking. This is the concept of forced vibration or resonance, which we study in physics. Same thing applies to activation of our chakras. So our chakra this chakra is having certain natural frequency, but now it is not oscillating with that frequency because it is not tuned. Now, if you play if you play a frequency, which is the natural frequency of this particular chakra, when we are actually playing this frequency, it will start vibrating at the natural pace. If you repeat it regularly, the frequency of this particular chakra will automatically be transformed into that natural frequency. That is how it is getting activated. This is one way of activating your chakras in order to activate your senses.